Imagine waking up in a world where the stars look alien, the air is thick with a strange energy, and the cities around you are built from stone blocks so massive that even the most modern cranes could not budge them. For centuries, you have been told that 10,000 years ago, your ancestors were nothing more than primitive hunters, shivering in caves, clutching sharpened sticks. But what if I told you everything you have ever been taught is a lie? If the primitive era was actually the result of a global collapse, and before the Great Flood, humanity had reached the pinnacle of civilization, making our current digital age look like children's toys. Look closely at the deep wrinkles on an old man's face. History calls it a sign of aging. But looking at the surface of our planet, the massive scars on the Earth's crust, the vitrified stones of ancient forts, and the underwater ruins of Guinea are telling a story of the sudden and violent end of a golden age. Today, we are not just reading history, we are decoding the genetic memory of the human race. We are opening the information gap to see the world before the water submerged everything. Why was the name of this era erased? What are they hiding? In the next 30 minutes, I will show you the evidence that mainstream science refuses to discuss. From the high-tech agriculture of the Amazon to the star-aligned temples at Göbekli Tepe, we are returning to the world before the cataclysm. Before the Great Flood, the Earth was not the planet you recognize today. Evidence shows that atmospheric pressure was higher and oxygen content was significantly more abundant. This is not just a theory, it is locked in the amber bubbles of ancient tree resin. In this environment, everything was larger. Plants were lush, animals were giant, and if we believe the legends found in every ancient culture, humans lived for hundreds of years. Think about it, if you had 500 years to master a skill, how far would you go? We see out-of-place artifacts suggesting that they mastered sound frequencies to lift stone blocks. They did not use brute force, they used the harmony of the earth. They viewed the world not as a machine to exploit, but as a garden to tune. But beneath this beauty, a hidden danger was lurking. The ice caps were bulging, the Earth's crust was under terrible pressure, and a visitor from space was about to change the fate of humanity forever. Mainstream history tells us that thousands of workers dragged stone blocks weighing tons over hundreds of miles using only wooden rollers and hemp ropes. But try putting yourself in a state of controlled panic for a moment. If you tried to do that today, even with the most modern steel cables, the absolute friction would snap them like dry twigs. Evidence from the world before the flood shows that they did not use force, they used frequency. Have you ever noticed some ancient rooms have perfect resonance at 111 Hz? This is not a coincidence. It is a physical map of inner tension and outer harmony. These people did not just build temples, they built acoustic resonators. They understood that matter is just vibration, and if you can match the frequency of a stone, it will become as light as a feather. Think about the information gap here. We find granite stone boxes in the Surappayam of Saqqara, cut with a precision that deviates less than a hair's breadth over several meters of length. According to the official timeline, 10,000 years ago, we had no tools harder than copper. How do you cut solid pink granite with copper? You cannot. You must use what I call knives and forks for the earth, tools that manipulate energy at the molecular level. For decades, we have looked at the Amazon rainforest as a pristine and untouched wilderness. But when the trees are cleared, a shocking truth is emerging. The Amazon was once a giant high-tech agricultural machine. We see giant geoglyphs, perfect circles and squares, stretching for miles, precisely aligned with the stars. This was once the golden age of self-reliance. They created Prita, a man-made soil, rich in nutrients and fertile so that it could regenerate itself even thousands of years later. This was not primitive farming, this was advanced biotechnology. They lived in complete freedom and independence, building cities in rhythm with the planet instead of suffocating it. But why do we not see their steel or plastic? Because their technology was organic. They did not build to consume, they built to last. However, even the most resilient organic civilization could not cope with the approaching cosmic assassin. Imagine the fear of missing out on your own life. 12,800 years ago, humanity was at its peak. Then a controlled panic became a global reality. Geological evidence points to a major comet impact on the ice sheets in North America. This is the hidden danger that mainstream science has ignored for a century. In an instant, ice sheets miles thick were instantly melted. A wall of water hundreds of meters high swept across the continents. This was not just a flood, it was a global disaster that reset the clock of humanity. You have seen the deep wrinkles on the landscape of eroded lands. Those are the scars of the Great Flood. This impact did not only bring water, it also brought fire. Rains of burning resin filled the sky. The temperature dropped 15 degrees in just a decade. The giants, mammoths, and advanced cities all were wiped out in a life of 2 deaths. Imagine yourself as the last person holding a hidden secret. The water receded, but the world was a graveyard. You were not a primitive person, but a high-tech refugee. Ancient texts from Sumer to Egypt tell of the 7 sages, or the followers of Horus. Entities that appeared from nowhere to teach a broken humanity the truth of the ages. They did not just teach farming, they taught acoustic engineering and celestial alignment. Why were the Great Pyramid and the temples at Angkor Wat built on the same geodesic grid? This is a shocking statistic. The odds of this happening by chance are 1 in a billion. This was the upgrade strategy of the survivors. They knew another global disaster would strike, so they carved their knowledge into stone archives that water could not wash away and fire could not burn. They were the architects of hope. They gave us the keys to the truth so that we would never be independent of our true history again. But as time passed, their blessing became a blissful curse. We forgot the reason why and only remembered what it was. Do you ever feel a controlled panic when looking at a vast body of water? Or perhaps you have dreamed of a city slowly sinking into the deep blue water. This is not just imagination, it is your genetic memory speaking. Psychology tells us that trauma can be passed down through generations. The Great Flood was a life lesson so painful that it was actually etched into your DNA. We use metaphorical language to describe life today. We talk about trying to stay afloat or drowning in debt. These are not just idioms, they are physical maps of a subconscious fear dating back 10,000 years. The deep wrinkles of history are not just on the ground, they are in your soul. But here is the plot twist: if we can remember their technological methods, we can reclaim our individual freedom. We can move from avoiding pain to creating a new life. You are not a descendant of cavemen, you are the reincarnation of a high-tech lineage. Why does the mainstream academic world act like a dream thief? They see the deep scars on the Sphinx and say it was due to wind erosion, but data storytelling proves it was water damage. This means the Sphinx was there before the Great Flood. There is a disappearance of dreams in our history books. Beneath the ice of Antarctica and the sands of the Sahara are lost cities that could expose every lie you have ever heard. They want you to always be primitive, because a person who knows their divine origin is a person who cannot be controlled. Every ancient culture, from the Nephilim in the Hebrew Bible to the Titans of Greece and the Anunnaki of Sumer, tells of an age when giants walked on the earth. Mainstream science rejects this and considers it legend, but look at the hidden secrets of biology. Remember what we discussed about the atmosphere before the flood. High oxygen content and increased atmospheric pressure not only made plants larger, they also allowed for giant biological growth. We find deep scars in the fossil record of dragonflies with a wingspan of 0.6 meters. If insects were giants, why could humans not be? These are the elite outcasts of history. They were not only large, they were also extremely intelligent, possessing a divine origin that allowed them to manipulate the harmony of the earth. When the Great Flood struck, they were the fallen ones, unable to survive the sudden change in gravity and pressure. Their life sentence ended in a watery grave, leaving only the giant footprints we see at Baalbek in Peru, stones so large that only a giant, or someone with the power of a god, could move them. When you hear the word Archi, you surely imagine a wooden boat with animals. But apply the shocking truth formula. The word Archi means a container or a box. In ancient Egypt, the Ark of the Covenant was a device, not just a relic. Before the Great Flood, the advanced technology of the ancients focused on torsion fields and atmospheric electricity. The arcade was a vibrating lifeboat, a geometric resonator designed to protect genetic codes and frequencies of life through the electromagnetic chaos of a pole shift. It was a savior in the form of a machine. The instructions given to Noah or Utnapishtim in the Sumerian version were high technical specifications for a Faraday cage. They did not just save animals, they were saving seeds of knowledge to ensure that survivors could rebuild and create a new world after the water receded. Why is this a forbidden truth? Because if you realize that your ancestors were masters of the laws of nature, you will stop being a slave to machines and start becoming a master of energy. The Great Flood was the first great reset. It was a life lesson teaching us about the fragility of civilization. Today we see signs of aging in our own society, the clogged arteries of the financial and social systems. Are we heading towards another disappearance of dreams? The plot twist here is that the solution does not lie in the future, it lies in the lost past. By decoding the secrets before the flood, we can find a way out of the dead land and reclaim our heritage of light. Mainstream archaeology calls them tombs. But apply the shocking truth formula. Not a single mummy was ever found in the Great Pyramid. Instead, we see a structure made of granite and limestone, materials famous for their piezoelectric properties. Imagine the earth as a garden that needs energy to grow. Before the Great Flood, the ancients did not use polluting chemical energy, they used geothermal resonance. The geoplow was an acoustic battery. The deep scars in the underground chambers suggest a continuous flow of water, creating a lifeboat of hydro energy. This was their savior technology. They were not primitive hunters, they were energy masters. They built a global network lined with the stars to collect the breath of the planet. But when the flood struck, these power plants were clogged like a clogged toilet, leaving us with giant stone shells that we now worship as monuments of death. Have you ever looked at the Pyrrhia's map? It shows the coastline of Antarctica without ice, thousands of years before it was supposed to have been discovered. This is a shocking statistic. How could a primitive society map a continent covered by a layer of ice more than 3 kilometers thick? The answer lies in the information gap. Before the cataclysm, humanity had reached the peak of discovery. They did not have a global positioning system, but they had advanced celestial navigation to the point that they could account for the precession of the equinoxes. They were the lords of the sea, mapping hidden lands before the sea level rose more than 120 meters. This map is a disappearance of dreams. It is a physical map of our forgotten individual freedom. They want you to think that we started from zero, but these maps prove we are the survivors of a global empire. Why is this history forbidden? Because if you know your ancestors could fly or navigate the globe 10,000 years ago, you will realize that you are currently living in a dead land with limited potential. The Great Flood was a life sentence that forced us into a life of two deaths, the death of the body and the death of memory. We are like the external signs of a deeper internal pain. We feel stuck or struggling because our DNA remembers an age when we were warriors of light. The plot twist is here. The seeds of knowledge are still here, buried under the silt of the Sahara and the ice of Antarctica. We are at the moment of the dawn of life, ready to decode the truth and rebirth our civilization. In the world before the flood, the connection between the earth and the stars was not only spiritual, it was also functional. Have you ever looked at the Sun Gate at Tiwanaku or the Hayumaka Star Gate in Peru? These are not just ceremonial arches, they are physical maps of a technology that we have forgotten. Mainstream history acts like a dream thief, telling you that these are just doors leading to nowhere. But look again at acoustic engineering. These structures were carved into monolithic andesite stone with precision so high that they resonate at specific cosmic frequencies. Imagine the fear of missing out on the universe itself. Before the Great Flood, humanity understood that the Earth was part of a global network connected to the stars. These stargates were resonators designed to bridge the information gap between dimensions. They were not primitive hunters, they were warriors of light, those who could rebirth their energy across the universe. But when the cosmic assassin struck, an impact from space, the Earth's magnetic field was shifted, clogging these gates forever. Have you ever wondered why ancient secrets often involve gold? From the masks of the pharaohs to the artifacts of the Maya, this type of gold has a purity and blessing that modern chemistry struggles to simulate. This is the forbidden chemistry of the pre-flood world. They did not only use gold as currency, they used it as a savior for the human body. They understood monatomy elements, what our alchemists called manai, or the bread of life. This type of upgrade chemistry could activate the body's self-healing ability and extend life up to hundreds of years. This is the shocking truth. We are living in a dead land of medicine. We use medicine as a lifeboat, while our ancestors used alchemy as a yacht. They were independent of disease. But when the Great Flood swept away the stone archives, the formula for this blessed compound was erased, leaving us only with the symptoms of aging. Why is this history forbidden? Because those in power want you to feel like you are struggling and stuck in the current system. They want you to think you are a primitive creature, but actually you are a high-tech lineage. The Great Flood was a life sentence that left us with a blank sheet of paper, but our DNA still holds the memory of the flood. We are at the moment of the dawn of life. Each giant ruin is a call to action, a blessing from the past telling you to wake up. The plot twist is here. Technology is not lost in space, it is lost in your own mind. By decoding these ancient frequencies, we can create a future where we are no longer slaves to machines, but masters of the Earth's garden. Mainstream science acts like a dream thief, telling you that the city of Atlantis is only a myth. But look at what is lying beneath the mud of the Atlantic. Based on the information gap effect, we are seeing ruins that cannot be explained by mainstream history. Imagine a giant structure and an underwater sphinx lying 600 meters below the surface near the Azores archipelago. This is not natural erosion, these are the deep scars of a civilization that was wiped out. Giant stone blocks exquisitely cut, flat-paved roads, all are physical maps of a golden age before the Great Flood. This is a shocking truth. We are not only finding stones, we are finding the hidden gems of history. Why do governments keep silent? Because a person who clearly knows their divine origin is a person who cannot be controlled. The Great Flood did not only submerge land, it submerged our memories into a financial and spiritual black hole. Do you ever feel like you have hidden powers that have not been tapped? This is not a delusion, it is genetic memory. Studies show that 90% of our DNA is called junk nana by scientists. But in the world before the flood, that was the door to truth. Before the Great Flood, humans did not only live on real food, but also on frequency. Our DNA is like a garden being neglected. To reactivate it, we need to learn the ways of the predecessors, using sound and resonance. This is the plot twist. The key does not lie in the future, it lies in decoding ancient vibrations. When you hear the frequencies of 432 Hz or 528 Hz, you are performing an escape from a boring life and starting the process of recreating yourself. You are moving from a state of helplessness to taking back control of your health and mind. Why do you feel a controlled panic when thinking about the apocalypse? That is because your DNA is warning about another great reset that is about to take place. But this time we have the savior, which is the truth that has been exposed. The Great Flood was a life lesson. We are no longer outcasts in our own history. Each giant artifact is a promise of commitment from the past, reminding you that you belong to a lineage of warriors of light. Stop living like a slave to machines. This is the time of the dawn of life. We are decoding the mystery to not only live long, but also to live a life full of meaning and freedom. Mainstream history acts like a dream thief, telling us that our ancestors only knew how to count on their fingers. But look at the shocking statistic. Ancient structures like Göbekli Tepe and the pyramids were aligned with the stars with a precision of 0.05 degrees. How did they know about the precession of the equinoxes, a cycle that takes 26,000 years to complete, unless they had observed the sky for millennia? This is the information gap. They were not just stargazing, they were decoding the clock of the universe. They understood that the Earth is not a static stone, but a ship traveling through a container of cosmic frequencies. They knew exactly when the impact from the universe would return. They carved this warning into the stone pillars of history, a message sent through time to us, the survivors. Why is this knowledge forbidden? Because it proves that time is cyclical, not linear. We are currently in a disappearance of dreams, repeating the very models of the world before the flood. If you realize that the end of the world is just a reset, you will stop living in controlled panic and start looking for individual freedom. When you think of the Arche, you will see a religious relic, but apply the shocking truth formula. The technical descriptions in ancient texts look like a capacitor or a super battery. It was made of acacia wood, an insulator, and was plated with gold, a conductor from the inside out. This is the exact design of a Leyden jar. This was the mobile energy network of the era before the flood. It was not magic, it was upgrade engineering. It could activate giant energy fields and communicate across distances by using atmospheric electricity. The survivors brought these seeds of knowledge out of the water to restart civilization in Egypt and Sumer. This is the plot twist. We are looking for the savior in the sky, but the savior is already here, hidden in the technology that our ancestors left behind. By decoding these artifacts, we are not just studying the past, we are creating a future independent of modern energy monopolies. Why do you feel deep scars in your soul when seeing these ruins? That is because you are a warrior of light going through a life of two deaths. You have been told that you are primitive to keep you always struggling in a system of clogged arteries. The Great Flood was a life lesson. It teaches us that purity and blessing can be wiped out in an instant if we lose connection with the harmony of the earth. But today the veil of secrecy is being lifted. Do not be a slave to machines. This is the time of the dawn of life. It is time to throw away the lies about primitivity and create a life of financial and spiritual freedom. We are decoding the past to save our future. Press subscribe now to join Tim in this rebirth journey. Mainstream science is still a dream thief, but now you have the keys to the truth. The survivors of the Great Flood did not only build stone pyramids, they built an arche of consciousness. They left seeds of knowledge so that when the cycle returns, we will not fall into a state of controlled panic, information gap. Before the Great Flood, humanity did not use frail paper. They used the harmony of the earth to encode information into crystalline structures. These are not just artifacts, they are ancient hard drives holding the memory of the flood. Why is this forbidden? Because if you learn how to decode the frequencies stored in these crystals, you will access a global network of knowledge predating all governments and religions. This is your individual freedom. The flood was a life of two deaths, but these skulls are the savior for our true identity. Do you ever feel controlled panic about the future? Ancient survivors from the Maya to the Hopi left a warning carved in stone. They spoke of the Great Reset as a cyclical event. They did not consider the flood as a one-time accident, but as a physical map of cosmic cycles. This is a shocking statistic. Our planet goes through a magnetic pole shift every 12,000 years. We are currently in that exact time frame. The deep scars in our history are about to repeat, but this time we have the keys to the truth. Why is this history forbidden? Because a society living in fear is easier to control than a society that clearly understands the dawn of life. We are not at the end point, we are at the point of rebirth. By decoding the warnings before the flood, we can create a different outcome. Why do you feel the disappearance of dreams in our modern world? That is because you are a warrior of light trapped in a system of clogged arteries. You have been told that you are primitive to prevent you from taking back control. The Great Flood was a life sentence, but it did not win. You are the living proof. Each giant stone is a promise of commitment from your ancestors. Do not be a slave to machines. This is the time of the dawn of life. It is time to throw away the lies and create an independent life. We are decoding the mystery to save our future. Subscribe to join Tim in unfolding the final chapter of this exploration. We have traveled through the information gap to see a world of acoustic engineering, organic technology, and celestial harmony. The forbidden truth is that you are not the first advanced civilization on Earth. You are the reincarnation of a species that once mastered the harmony of the Earth itself. The Great Flood was a life lesson in humility and resilience. Today, when you feel deep scars in your spirit or a controlled panic about our planet's future, that is the genetic memory telling you that you have been here before. We are not at the end of the world, we are at the moment of the dawn of life. This is the plot twist of our age. The ancient hard drives are not only in crystal skulls, they are in your own DNA. By decoding the history that Tim has shared today, you are taking back control of your destiny. You are moving from a life of 2 deaths to a life of infinite rebirth. Mainstream science is still a dream thief, but now you have the keys to the truth. The survivors of the Great Flood did not only build stone pyramids, they built an archive consciousness. They left seeds of knowledge so that when the cycle returns, we will not fall into a state of controlled panic. To prepare for the next cycle, you do not need a wooden ship, you need a ship of frequency and faith. You need to throw away the lies about being primitive and create a reality based on individual freedom and independence. This is your call to action. Do not let your mind remain a toilet clogged by misinformation from academia. Open the veil of secrecy and become an architect of hope for the future. Tim and you, we are the bridge across time. What do you think about this historical perspective? Please let Tim know your opinion. Your voice is the savior that will wake others from their sleep. Subscribe to join Tim in unfolding the next chapter of history. By joining this community, you are proving that you are one of those who dare to think and dare to do. You are not a slave to machines, you are a master of your own divine origin. The next video will reveal the lost city beneath Antarctica, the final fortress of the ancients. You will not want to miss this plot twist. Thank you for watching this video. Your support is the greatest motivation. Please press like and share this video to help more people find the light.